Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transportation Talks. Transportation Talks is sponsored by the University of Denver Transportation and Supply Chain Institute. My name is Michelle Livingstone, and I have the pleasure of channeling my inner Oprah and interviewing the best leaders in the industry for the next 30 minutes. And today, our guest is Mark Rourke, CEO of Schneider National. Mark, join me on camera. Hello, it's great to see you.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm really excited about our conversation today. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. We want to hear all about your career. Where did you start? How did you start? And bring us up to your point of becoming CEO.
Well, thanks, Michelle. And, it's an American success story in some respects, only because I came from a rather modest beginnings in Central Ohio, right south of Akron. And my worldview at that time could fit inside a thimble, and worked my way through college, paid for myself, and was fortunate coming out of college that transportation was just coming out of this booming period of deregulation. And our company, Schneider, was expanding beyond its familiar ground here in Wisconsin. And so Akron, Ohio was the first terminal location they built in their expansion. It was almost equally between Wisconsin and the East Coast, which was their big customer base because of printing paper and cheese and things that moved out of Wisconsin. So that's how it started. But working your way through school and not having maybe the best student or the best experience certainly taught you things of how you juggle priorities, how you develop a work ethic, a self-starter, all things, as you know, Michelle, are incredibly important in transportation.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we are very fortunate that you have landed in the transportation industry. What did you major in college?
Well, I started in mechanical engineering, decided, that's really hard to do, working 30 hours a week. So I went into the business school and management and marketing degrees. So all things that matter every day. Okay.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you're using those skills.
Not mechanical engineers out there. It doesn't matter every day. Don't worry.
Well, that's great. Well, you've been CEO now for 5 years. Right. What did you do, or how did you prepare, or how did Schneider prepare you to become CEO of one of the top transportation service providers in the country?
Very, very fortunate. The standpoint, the company very much has a develop from within approach and mentality, which means we put a great deal of effort around human capital management and processes, more so today maybe back than when I was starting. But I had the benefit, because we were such a large and sprawling organization across the service spectrum. I got a chance to be in driver-facing roles, customer-facing roles, logistics, non-asset, asset, dedicated. So I had the chance to play in many different parts of the business. I never felt I had to leave the company to get new and challenging experiences. And really much is at the heart of what we try to do today is have that general manager type development, so that like great people in your program, Angela Prill and Amy West, I might come into the organization, and Steve Road as a finance person, and really develop their skills there at a great deal of value. It doesn't show where you have to stay, right? You can expand into the business and in different ways. And certainly I was a beneficiary of that thought process here at Schneider.
Sure. No, it's great. And you've been with the company for 39 years now?
Oh, you're aging. 36.
36. Oh, I'm so sorry. They go by fast. Those
yeah, they do. They go by fast. They go by faster too. I'm telling you. Yeah,
they do. Well, I think it's really great that you've been able to expand your career in one location. That isn't always possible at a lot of places. So it's terrific that Schneider provides that opportunity. Now, you're only the 4th CEO in 89 years of the company's history, which is also impressive. The tenure of CEOs is typically not that long. So I'm very impressed with that. So when you first started with the company 36 years ago, the culture was one way, I'm sure. And as you have seen it, you've grown up in the company. So how is the culture? What was it when you first arrived? And then how would you describe it now that you've been in the CEO chair for a few years?
Yeah, which I think most people will probably answer a question like that. It's about the people and the values, and it's just very, very true in my case. But there's a couple of things over time that have stood out to me, and I give Don Schneider and folks that came before so much credit. First is no company can say they lack politics. I wouldn't be that naive, but I am so proud that we very little of that, right? It's about company first, and leaders take that approach very seriously. That's how an Angela Pearl and Amy get given up. It's very hard to, when you're responsible for results, to give up your best people to go in other parts of the company for their development. But that's really been a cultural imperative, how we stretch people, how we challenge people, how we don't lose our best people because we give them the opportunity to advance their career. So that was very much at the heart when I joined, and probably even more so today, just because of the dynamic nature of the business. And then second place that I really try to make sure we uphold, and Don really taught us this, is you cannot be afraid to deconstruct your business, right? If you hold on to things because you want them to be that way versus what the reality is, you won't thrive. So, intermodal back in 1990 was highly destructive to our business. We were a long haul trucker, and to say that you're going to now adopt and embrace, so many companies were fighting that, and Don embraced that. And look, we wouldn't be who we are today. And so hard if you didn't get started when you're good on the early part of this to be relevant. And so I always try to make sure that we don't get so proud of what we do that we're missing on where the customer's going or where the market's going. And we have to continue to adapt and be comfortable deconstructing the business if that's what's necessary.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Having been at Kraft General Foods and going through the acquisitions when they started selling those off, I know it became very personal to me because you work so hard to bring it all together.
Yes.
And to deconstruct is a really difficult challenge. It's hard to let go. And at least that's what I have found. So that's a great.
Hopefully you have some creative destruction in there so that you can find other ways, but yes.
Yeah, that is definitely a tough one for sure. But those are definitely good lessons. And I know, there's been a bit of a merger and acquisition tone in the industry. I know Werner has acquired some companies. Schneider, I think your last acquisition was in 2023 with M&M Transportation.
Yeah, we've done 3 in the last 24 months. So back into that more aggressively, and would expect to continue. But absolutely.
Yeah. So just a quick question in terms of the culture that Schneider has. Some of those companies have been left to stand under their own banner. So clearly you saw value in what they brought to the party on their own. But how do you approach the merging of 2 cultures and make that all work for everybody?
Yeah, great question, Michelle. I think, first of all acquisitions don't go well. And so we've learned some lessons across the year. And if I think of one in our, 6-7 years ago that didn't go well, is because we were not as sensitive to that culture element. We were all about the end story and didn't put enough emphasis around culture. And so to me today, that's a screening mechanism. If we have any discomfort with how they solve problems, how they treat people, what their cultural pillars are, we screen them out. We've let go of some really interesting opportunities just because we weren't comfortable there. So to me, it's not so much after the fact. It has to be on the front end in your screening. And you're right. There's something about companies and their secret sauce that made them successful with their employees, with their customers. And so what we really want to do, if we can enhance that associate experience or customer experience, generally we prefer to leave it alone and let them achieve what they've achieved, and maybe give them more access to capital and help them do some of the things they don't do as well. But certainly what they did do well was customers and associates, particularly drivers in our case.
Do you look for a lot of synergy opportunities when you acquire the company? Is the expectation that you're going to be able to buy tires more effectively, fuel more effectively, and help reduce costs? Is that a big part of the motivation?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. A really important part of it. But again, all those things should enhance the customer or the associate experience. We're not trying to put them in orange trucks, or we're trying to to make everything exactly how Schneider do it. But certainly those back office things and those purchasing leverage is a great way to add additional value to the business, and are very much the use case. But we're very upfront of what those things are on the front end as we go through that process. And what I feel really good about is our 2 or 3 primary owners that we've acquired their businesses. They are our references for the future, and so they can talk about their experience with us, how it worked, how we stood by our word. And so that's a very powerful for somebody who has their legacy that they might be, putting out on the marketplace. They care about those things.
Sure. No, that's a really big deal. Well, as you look into the next 2024, 25, 26, are you anticipating more mergers and acquisitions to occur in the Schneider world?
Yeah, I think our truckload, full load space is going through a little bit of a consolidation. I don't think you're going to see us get down to LTL or railroads or airlines, but you are seeing some consolidation, particularly as the industry grew up in the 90s. You have folks now that have businesses that maybe the family doesn't want to stay part of. Our priority is organic growth first, but I would be disappointed, Michelle, if we didn't have a couple of acquisitions in the next 18 months that advance our strategy in addition to our organic growth, to include maybe some more larger, more transformative opportunities. But really happy with the last three that we brought on board.
Well, that's great. And just a couple more questions on this. Do you tend to go out and seek out the companies to acquire, or are you being approached by companies asking to be acquired?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Presently, we've put some more muscle and resources around being proactive and developing some relationships maybe before they're thinking about selling. But we think we have to be ready on both sides, be ready to respond as an acquirer of choice to those already made that decision, but also develop relationships before people have actually determined what they're going to do. So more resources in the last year on that latter part of that, of being out and being more proactive.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's good to know. And we'll look forward to reading it on Freight Waves, whoever you acquire.
Nothing is going on presently. Cannot. Yeah.
I understand. Well, as you think about the industry right now, I know it's been kind of a prolonged period of being a shipper market. And I know there's always great hope and expectations that it's going to turn to be more of a carrier market. But as you think about each of the modes that Schneider plays in, which is truckload, dedicated, intermodal, and I'm sure I'm missing something, brokerage, of course, logistics. Yes, as you think about each one of those, how are you viewing the market currently, and when do you see a change potentially occurring?
Yeah, Michelle, you noted there, we're probably, in our view, about a 22-month freight recession, and which is more supply driven in our view, maybe than demand driven, just coming out of the post-pandemic era. But I think one of the trends that are here, and carriers and certainly shippers, as they've all gone through this digital transformation, we all have information at our fingertips, particularly in price discovery, capacity discovery, that I think you're going to see these changes become more abrupt and be more in tune to the market, particularly in those network one-way offerings, intermodal and truck, which isn't a bad thing. It's just when that happens, it's going to happen in probably a little more abrupt and faster mode, just because of the discovery that's out there from a data standpoint. Interestingly, dedicated, which is deeper relationships, longer term, very much is still in vogue. Even it was during the up cycle, now in the down cycle, because there's extra value created there, either very high service levels or special services that you're doing with your driver, in addition to moving the product from A to B. So, that's been very stable and continues to have a very strong pipeline. So it's just interesting how one segment of the market is under a lot of duress and the other is kind of burgeoning and having great success. And it's I guess the beauty of having multiple services. You have some give and take within the portfolio. And then intermodal, as you're aware, is heavily driven by imports, and imports have been down until recently. And so that's a good trend now that we're seeing the port activity pick up across the country. I think bodes well for intermodal. Obviously, big emission gain there for shippers who care about emission reduction. So there's some tailwinds behind that service offering that we think we'll get a chance to take advantage of. We have some battery electric trucks we've deployed there, so we've got some neat things going on in intermodal. And then finally, brokerage is a way to grow your business without having all that capital investment. And we and some other large carriers have introduced this whole power-only concept, where we can tie our trailing box to a shipper that cares about trailer pool efficiency, but we can bring third-party carriers in there to help cover additional volume. And that's done really well, whether the market's been up or market's been down. So I'm really encouraged by that. So a little bit of good, a little bit of struggle, but I think we're seeing signs that things are starting to improve and get more in balance, and maybe this economy is going to have a nice soft landing, and we're not going to have to worry about anything more dramatic than that. But we'll see.
Well, I hope that's the case for sure, because it's not healthy for either shippers or carriers to have these dramatic swings. And being a former shipper, we recognize that there's got to be a better way to do business. We just
You bet. But there are stresses for both parties,
Oh, there are.
where you are in that, right, Michelle? You've lived through that.
Yes, we have. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So, and certainly more creative in a lot of ways. So that is part of I wouldn't call it fun, but certainly part of the benefit of going through difficult times is that you really tend to find where that creativity comes from. And that can be really worth a lot. So
yeah, there's just so much value for companies to stay together for longer periods of time, to know each other's business. And so you're absolutely right. We'll figure out at some point how to deal with these changes a little more effectively over time. And I think technology will be part of that.
Yes, absolutely. And that is certainly another reason why it's so fun to be in the industry at this point in time, because the technology really has improved and made a huge difference. So
yes,
we're excited about that. So tell me this, what are your thoughts about final mile? Because I believe your competitors have gone into that side of business and have stayed there. I think Schneider put more than a toe, maybe up to the knees at one point in time, then decided maybe it wasn't for you. What would it take for Schneider to reconsider and potentially go down that final mile track?
Yeah, when our endeavorance that several years ago was one of those acquisitions that maybe didn't go as well as we would hoped, Michelle, is that we were actually maybe a little ahead of our time. We were trying to bring an asset solution on the first mile, the middle mile, then ultimately to the final mile. So an LTL heavy network for bulky items, and getting to a balance and a cost to serve to do that whole thing from first to final was really hard to derive from, and get value out of the marketplace. So we're still in final mile. We're doing it in the dedicated configurations around, specialty ATV vehicles or home improvement channels, or things that we're doing in the final mile. But we just think we have other ways to put our capital allocation to work and for our shareholders. And so I would never say never, but it's not our primary focus in a kind of a random network type way right now. So kind of learned, if we would have stuck just with that final mile portion versus trying to knit this whole first to final together, may have been a better approach. But we got plenty of other things to focus on, and that's our approach presently.
Got it. Well, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and it kind of goes back to deconstructing your business, right? You have to know when to let go, and if it's not a great fit, then cut your losses. So
don't take pride in decisions that you shouldn't. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned briefly about electric vehicles, and I know Schneider's been very committed to a number of ESG commitments. So tell us where you stand on the electric vehicle piece in particular. I believe right now California is the focus, if I got that correct.
Yeah, I think there's chances in some other geographies as too, Michelle. There's a very specific use case for those type of vehicles because of range and certainly cost. But the biggest challenges have been the truck. It's been, how do you get power distributed from a charging standpoint? Because we believe the best way to get adoption is have the charging be private and be where the truck is on most evenings or most parts of the day that you can run your operation smoothly. But so we've had I think we're over 2 million miles in Dre in Southern California. We just crossed that milestone. And it's actually going well. The drivers love the vehicles. I mean, they're driving a BMW, super responsive, quiet, doesn't have a diesel component to it, much simpler, a lot less parts. So there's a lot of very beneficial. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult economic case, costs 3 times as much. The power that we are drawing into our location could do 5,000 homes here in Wisconsin. Oh. So you can imagine some of the challenges to get enough off the grid to do that. So it's really not electricity. It's really not the trucks. It's how do you get those two together in the distribution of power. But we're running nearly 100 trucks in Southern California presently. We've expanded some shuttle trucks on property. And we might be able to do some things in Texas and Georgia, but it's going to have to be in that Sun Belt area because of the impact of the cold on range. So a little early in the process. We've learned a ton. And the good news is we'll be able to apply that in future operations. But it was really a 3.5-year planning project to get off the ground.
Well, I think it's terrific. And it's certainly, from all indications, electric is going to be the way to go. It may take us 2040 by the time we get there, but
Yeah.
certainly that is the trend for sure. I should probably just pause here and make sure that the audience recognizes that you are welcome to submit questions. The way to do that is through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. So I can sit here and talk to Mark until next Tuesday. I've got plenty of questions, but if you've got something that's on your mind and you want to submit a question, please do that. And then we'll pause and take that one. But meanwhile, we're going to keep on going down our ESG path. So I know Schneider's made a big commitment in a number of areas. What are you most proud of right now in terms of what Schneider's accomplished and what do you have on the radar for this year and beyond?
Yeah, what I'm really proud about is the first part of that is how do you take care of your people, and safety and safe operations and the things that we do are so critically important. We've just won our 3rd National Safety Council Green Cross Award, the only company, not transportation company, the only industrial company to win in each of their categories, which is a part of the culture. It's good business, but it's also taking care of your people. We just talked about being environmentally friendly here with the emissions and the things that we're doing in intermodal and now battery electric. We think those are things that we can help lead the industry in and teach others as well. Just like safety, we don't try to compete with our competitors on safety. If we can share something that helps everybody be safe, or we can learn from somebody, that's, we think emissions and sustainability can fit into that same category, Michelle. And as it relates to people, I think we just continue to stress there's nothing that brings our diverse group together more than being Schneider, and having an environment that everybody can reach their potential. And I'm really proud that over 40% of our leaders in this company are women. And 58% of our associate population are racially diverse. And so this is such a great industry for people to be able to leverage their skills and make a difference. And we take our ability to knock barriers down as much as we can to do that. We're up to 14% of our drivers are now female drivers, right? And they're highly inspirational, and we would expect nothing but further progress in those type of categories.
Well, that's great. I certainly hope that progress continues. You're leading the way, so that's terrific. So I want to change gears here for just a moment and talk about the strong support that Schneider National has shown for the Transportation Supply Chain Institute. There are a number of leaders that have come through the program that have gone on to do great things. Like, a couple come to mind right away. You mentioned Angela Prill, Scott Road is one. We've got a couple others as well in the program right now. So why is it that you find it important to continue to invest in your leaders, and what is it about the Transportation Supply Chain Institute that you find to be an appropriate program?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had great success with everything associated with the program. Michelle, I've been here 36 years. A number of the people you mentioned have been here a very long time at the company, which is wonderful. And it's a great accomplishment. It really helps us, but it could be our strongest element, but it also could be one of our weaker elements. And so giving folks an opportunity to get outside our world and see others and see how other people look at problems, solve problems, that diversity of worldview, I think is very important to round out individuals. And the Denver program does that in a great way. And the people that you mentioned all have done many different things in their career, and not that that's the only reason, but it certainly, I think it's been a catalyst for them. And that's why you have our current and future commitment, because it does help. Yeah,
well, no, we're always very fortunate to have someone from Schneider in the program, and really appreciate your continued support on that. So we do have questions that came in through the chat. So the first one that came in has to do with partnering and collaborating with rail. What do you see as the top 3 challenges with the truck and rail model?
Well, our approach is that we try to really collapse around a partner in the West, a partner in the East, and one in and out of Mexico, so that we can get really integrated, and not only in our commercial approach, but operationally, because we have our own boxes, our own chassis, our own company dray, and efficiency matters for the railroad. And we can show that we can be your best partner if we collaborate, because our opportunities and our incentives are completely aligned together. And so making that investment across that operational, commercial, and technological approach, we think is absolutely critical to achieve what we're trying to achieve. And to their credit, they've been very open to that and are really investing in things that make us more effective inside their terminals so that we can be more effective on the street. And so really proud and really great, appreciative of all the effort on both our rail partners and our team to really embrace that and make that actionable.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we only have a couple minutes left, and I promised that we talk about the Green Bay Packers.
Oh.
So you have the unique opportunity of serving on the board of the Green Bay Packers, which has to be a lot of fun, especially when they're winning. So maybe not so much when they're not, but they've got a good track record overall. So Green Bay Packers just released Aaron Jones was just in the last few days, and there's a lot of activity going on. Can you tell us any inside scoop?
Well, interestingly, the NFL and the Green Bay Packers frown upon us talking about anything, even if we knew what was going on. So, yeah, they're real sticklers for that, Michelle. So we'll keep it to non-football operations as opposed to football operations. But it is an amazingly well-run organization with a very much a great talent pool. And so to me, the most rewarding part is just to see how hard and committed those people are to their mission to create the best fan experience and things that they do on the field. So to me, it's been a real joy, but not allowed to talk about any of it, unfortunately.
Oh man, I was so hoping
your fantasy team is going to have to be on its own.
Knew it. This was going to be the year that I was going to finally pull myself up from the bottom in the Family Fantasy Football League. But I guess I'll just have to continue going down my normal path. But, wink twice if you think you're going to get a really good quarterback or something. Okay. That's what I need. Well, Mark, is there anything that you wish I would have asked you about that I haven't had an opportunity to ask you yet? Any other key messages that you would like to leave the audience with?
Well, Michelle, I think through the program and through what your leadership when you were at your customers over the years, right? It's such even though technology is advancing and AI is next and what's all the things that we're all going to deploy, this is still very much a people business. People matter, relationships matter, and the things that you're doing to help form those in the program there and prepare people to solve tomorrow's problems is incredibly important. So we think of that as an extension of what we're trying to do inside our building. But thank you for what you do to lead and certainly what Denver does to help prepare our associates to be even bigger impact in our business.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And I certainly am one who has been in the industry for, as I like to say, 150 years. So I do value relationships and the benefit that they bring and the importance and who you align with is so important in business.
It is, absolutely.
Thank you for Schneider having been such a strong component of my transportation strategy, regardless of where I worked for so many years. So thank you for that. So on that note, I'm just going to thank everybody for your participation today. We really appreciated you tuning in, and I hope that you'll put a reminder on your calendar for June 12th from 2:30 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time when Katie Farmer, CEO of BNSF, will be our next guest. So Mark, thank you so much. Going to give you a round of applause. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks. Bye.